The day started like any other. It was supposed to be a celebration. A day of joy and laughter. I had been looking forward to this moment for months. My granddaughter Lily was turning 5. For a man my age, there is no greater joy than seeing the smile on a grandchild's face. It's a feeling that fills the cracks in your soul, the ones that life and its hardships have carved out over the years. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have anticipated, was that this innocent little party was about to become the stage for the most devastating betrayal of my life. And I, a man who had built his entire life on trust and integrity, was about to have my world shattered into a million pieces. It had been 8 months since I had seen Lily. 8 long, agonizing months. It was the longest we had ever been apart, and every day felt like a year. My son Daniel had been distant lately. His phone calls were shorter. His excuses for not visiting flimsier. He always seemed busy, always wrapped up in his own little world. I knew that was part of life, of course. Children grow up. They build their own lives, and their parents often become secondary. I accepted that. I had accepted that a long time ago. But Lily was different. Lily was my sunshine, my little spark of joy. She was the only one who could make my heart feel light again. I remember the last time I saw her. She was wearing a little pink dress with butterflies on it. She had just learned how to read her name, and she was so proud. She had shown me her crayon drawing of a house with a big green yard. She pointed to the house and said, "That's your house, Grandpa, because you have the biggest yard and the best garden." And she had a garden of her own, she explained, a little patch of dirt near the back door where she was growing sunflowers. That was Lily. Pure and innocent and full of love. She was the one person in this world who was untouched by the cynicism and bitterness that seemed to creep into so many relationships. I got the invitation a month ago. It was a simple card, but it was enough. It was an invitation to her 5th birthday party. Daniel had texted me the address. It was a house in the suburbs, one I hadn't seen before. They must have moved recently, and he hadn't told me. That stung a little, but I pushed the feeling aside. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe he was proud of the new house and wanted to surprise me. I decided to focus on the positive. I was going to see my granddaughter. That was all that mattered. For weeks, I planned the perfect gift. I had bought her a beautiful little locket. A small gold heart with a tiny picture of me and her grandmother inside. It was her grandmother's locket, actually. The one she had worn every day until she passed. I had kept it safe for years, waiting for the right moment to pass it on. It was my most precious possession, a symbol of the love and family that meant everything to me. I would give it to Lily, and I would tell her that she was a part of that love. A continuation of a story that had started long before she was born. I didn't ask about the guest list. I didn't even ask about the logistics. I was too excited. I told my friends I was going to spend the day with my granddaughter. I told myself that the distance and the silence were just phases. I told myself that this was a new beginning. The day arrived. I put on my best shirt, the one with the small checkered pattern that Lily always said she liked. I polished my shoes. I looked in the mirror and saw a man who, despite his years, was still full of hope. I could feel the warmth of the sun on my face as I stepped outside. It was a beautiful day. The sky was a perfect blue. The kind of blue that makes you believe everything is going to be okay. I drove to the address. The house was a large colonial-style building with a sprawling green lawn. There were colorful balloons tied to the mailbox, and I could hear the distant sound of children laughing. My heart swelled. This was it. This was going to be a perfect day. I parked my car and started walking up the driveway. I saw the crowd of guests. There were at least 100 people scattered across the yard. It was a big party, the kind of lavish event that my daughter-in-law, Rachel, always loved to throw. She was very particular about appearances. She wanted everything to be perfect, to look like a picture from a magazine. I always thought it was a bit excessive, but it wasn't my place to say anything. It was their money, their house. My job was to just show up and love my granddaughter. I scanned the crowd, looking for a familiar face. I saw Daniel. He was talking to some men in suits. He looked handsome. He was my son, after all. I was proud of him. He'd built a good career, a good life, but I couldn't help noticing the slight tension in his shoulders, the way he was constantly glancing toward the house. I didn't think much of it at the time. The stress of hosting a party could do that to anyone. My eyes kept searching. I was looking for the small, fluttering pink dress, the one that I had seen in my dreams for the last 8 months. I was looking for Lily. And then I saw her. She was by the bouncy castle. She was wearing a beautiful sparkling white dress, like a little princess. She had a crown of flowers on her head, and she was laughing with her whole body. The sound of it was like music to my ears. It was the most wonderful sound in the world. She was chasing a little boy, her little legs pumping fast, her blonde hair flying in the wind. She was so beautiful. My heart ached with love. Tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't help it. All the distance, all the missed calls, all the loneliness of the past 8 months melted away in an instant. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. I started walking toward her faster and faster. I could see her face clearly now. She looked up and she saw me. Her eyes widened. A huge smile spread across her face. "Grandpa," she screamed. The sound pierced through the noise of the party like a beautiful bell. She dropped the little boy's hand and started running. She was running toward me, her arms outstretched, her dress billowing behind her. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. She was running to me. She remembered me. She still loved me. I knelt down, opening my arms wide to catch her. My heart was bursting. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the feeling I had been craving. And then, just as she reached me, just as her little arms were about to wrap around my neck, I felt a sharp, violent shove from behind. It was so sudden, so unexpected, that I had no time to brace myself. My body lurched forward. My glasses flew off my face. I heard a clatter as they skidded across the grass. My world tilted. I saw the ground rushing up to meet me. I landed hard on my back, but the impact was mostly absorbed by a nearby plastic chair. I heard a collective gasp from the crowd. I heard Lily scream, "Grandpa!" I was stunned. I was disoriented. What had just happened? I looked up from the ground. My vision blurred without my glasses. I saw a figure standing over me. It was Rachel, my daughter-in-law. Her face was contorted in a mask of pure, unfiltered rage. Her eyes were blazing. Her lips were pulled back in a snarl. I had never seen her like this before. She looked like a stranger, a wild animal. She was panting, her chest heaving. She looked at me with such venom in her eyes, such utter contempt. It was a look that I couldn't comprehend. What had I done to deserve such hatred? And that's when something inside me snapped. Snapped. I had been a peaceful man my entire life. I believed in turning the other cheek. I believed in patience, in understanding, in letting things go. I had spent my life being the bigger person. I had been a husband, a father, a grandfather, and I had always tried to lead by example. I had taught Daniel to be respectful. I had taught him that violence was never the answer. But in that moment, all of that training, all of that learned civility, left my body. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal rage that I didn't even know I possessed. She had assaulted me in front of 100 guests. She had pushed me to the ground in front of my granddaughter, in front of my son. The disrespect was absolute. The humiliation was total, and all I could hear in my head was the question, how dare she? I rose from the chair. I didn't even notice the pain in my back or the dirt on my clothes. I just saw red. My hand moved before my brain could even register the thought. I saw it arc through the air, and then I felt the sharp sting on my palm connecting with her cheek. The sound of the slap echoed through the suddenly silent yard. It was a loud, sharp crack that silenced the entire party. I saw Rachel's head snap to the side. She stumbled back a step, a look of complete shock on her face. I had never raised a hand to a woman in my entire life. I never thought I could. But the rage was so overwhelming, so all-consuming, that I had lost control. And then I screamed. I roared at her from the depths of my soul. "How dare you?" I bellowed, my voice shaking with fury. How dare you lay your hands on me in front of my granddaughter, in front of my son? What is wrong with you? I saw the reactions around me. The guests were frozen, mouths agape. Children had stopped playing. The music had stopped. The whole world seemed to have stopped. Every single eye was on us. My son, Daniel, was staring at me with a look of absolute horror. He was pale, his face drained of all color. He looked like a child who had just seen a monster. I had never acted like this in my life. I had never hit anyone. I had never screamed at a family member. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the desperate need to understand what was happening. But I couldn't stop. The floodgates had opened. Rachel was screaming now. Tears were streaming down her face. "He hit me!" she shrieked, clutching her cheek. "Did you all see that? He hit me. This is assault. I'll have him arrested." But her tears didn't move me. They didn't fool anyone. The guests' eyes weren't on me. They were on her. They had seen what happened. They had seen her sprint across the lawn and shove an old man to the ground. They saw her rage. They saw the unprovoked attack. Her tears were just a performance, a last-ditch attempt to manipulate the situation. I could hear the murmurs beginning to ripple through the crowd. "What is she doing?" I heard someone whisper. "That was unprovoked. He's an old man." The sympathy was with me. It was with the man who had been knocked to the ground on his granddaughter's birthday, the man who had been humiliated. My heart was pounding so fast I could barely breathe. I could feel my hands shaking. I looked at Rachel. Her eyes were darting around, realizing that her narrative was crumbling. She was a master manipulator, but she had no control over the visual truth that had just played out. This was a game she had lost before it even began, but I was just getting started. The slap wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. It was in that moment, as I looked into her panicked eyes, that I made a decision. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was the most calculating decision of my life. I wouldn't just fight her in this yard. I would dismantle her entire world. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my son. I called my lawyer. The number was on speed dial. It wasn't just any lawyer. It was Arthur. We had been friends for 40 years. He was the man who helped me set up my company, who drafted my will, who helped me buy my first piece of real estate. He knew everything about me. He knew everything about my finances. He knew everything about my property. He was the most powerful man I knew. He answered on the first ring. "Arthur," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I need you at the property on Hemlock Lane. Immediately. And Arthur, bring the deeds. Bring all of them." I didn't even wait for him to ask questions. I just hung up. I knew he would come. He always did. The next few minutes were surreal. The party was still frozen. Rachel was trying to compose herself, dabbing at her eyes. Daniel was just standing there, shell-shocked, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. If I looked at him, I might break. I might see the disappointment in his eyes. I might see him take her side, and I just couldn't handle that. Not now. I stood my ground. I didn't move from the spot. I just waited. 5 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. Arthur stepped out. He was an imposing man, tall, silver-haired, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. He was a picture of authority. He walked through the crowd with an air of purpose, and people parted for him like the Red Sea. He walked right up to me. "Arthur," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "They are no longer welcome in this house. I want them out, all of them." I saw Rachel freeze. Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "This is our house. We bought it. We have a mortgage." Daniel stepped forward. "Dad, what is going on?" Rachel calmed down. "Dad, please, let's just talk about this. Let's go inside. We can work this out." But I ignored him. I looked at Arthur. Arthur gave a curt nod. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of legal papers. He held them up for the crowd to see. "Ladies and gentlemen," Arthur announced, his voice booming across the yard, "I have in my possession the original deed to this property. A deed which, as of 5 minutes ago, was reaffirmed by our office. This house was purchased by my client, the grandfather, in 2010. The deed is in his name, has always been in his name. It was never transferred to Daniel or Rachel. It is, and always has been, his property. The crowd gasped. I saw Daniel's face drain of all color. He looked like he'd been punched in the gut. What? He whispered, looking from me to Arthur. That can't be right. We got a mortgage. We've been paying for this house for years. You have been paying your father rent, Daniel, Arthur replied calmly. You have been paying him mortgage payments, which he has generously been using to maintain the property. The legal ownership, however, has never changed. The title is clear. Rachel looked like a trapped animal. Her eyes were wide with panic. She was terrified. She knew what this meant. She knew she had been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, hosting parties in my yard, all while treating me like dirt. She knew she had just assaulted the owner of the home she was standing in. She was finished. You can't do this, she shrieked. We have a child. We have nowhere to go. But I wasn't done. I looked at Daniel. The anger was still burning in my veins, but there was also a deep sadness, a profound disappointment. He had let this woman poison his mind, and he had been so blind he couldn't see the truth. It was time to open his eyes. You see that TV, Daniel? I said, pointing to the large outdoor screen they had set up for the party. It's connected to the house Wi-Fi. I have access to your cloud server. You really should have changed the password. I pulled out my phone. I had been planning this for a while. I had suspected something was going on. I had hired a private investigator, and what he found was gut-wrenching. I had the evidence on my phone, and I was ready to show the world. I tapped the screen, and the video began to play on the large outdoor projector. The image was clear. It was a security camera feed from inside the house. The timestamp showed dates and times while Daniel was at work. There she was, Rachel, on the couch, and she wasn't alone. A different man, was sitting next to her. The man was her ex-boyfriend, the one she had told Daniel she had cut ties with. I saw them laughing. I saw them kissing. I saw them moving upstairs. I saw everything. The crowd watched in stunned silence. The betrayal was laid bare in high definition. The lies were destroyed. The manipulation was exposed. Daniel stared at the screen. I saw the exact moment the truth hit him. His face crumpled. He looked like he was going to be sick. He had defended her. He had believed her lies. And now, in front of all his friends and family, he was being forced to see the truth. How long? He whispered, his voice cracking. How long has this been going on? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The video spoke for itself. Rachel was screaming now, but it didn't matter. The crowd had turned on her. They had seen her push an old man. They had seen her lie. They had seen her cheat. No one was buying her drama. Her tears were a sign of defeat. I walked over to Daniel. I put my hand on his shoulder. Son, I said, my voice quiet and hoarse. She is not allowed in this house anymore. Neither of them is. They have 30 minutes to pack their things and get out. I looked around at the guests. The party was ruined. I could feel the weight of their stares. I wasn't proud of what I had done. I wasn't proud of slapping Rachel. I wasn't proud of the destruction I had caused. But I was proud that I had protected my granddaughter. I was proud that I had stood up for myself. I was proud that I had shown everyone the truth. Daniel just nodded. He was broken. He couldn't speak. He just walked into the house, leaving his wife behind. He was going to start packing. He was going to have to deal with the fallout. Rachel was left standing in the yard alone, surrounded by people who now looked at her with nothing but disgust. She was defeated. Her illusions were gone. She had lost her husband, her home, and her reputation in less time than it takes to make a cup of coffee. I looked around the yard. The bouncy castle was deflating. The cake was melting, and Lily was standing by the corner of the house, hugging her knees. She was crying, her little body shaking with sobs. My heart broke all over again. This wasn't the memory I wanted her to have of her 5th birthday. I walked over to her. I knelt down and held my arms out. Come here, Lily, I said softly. She ran into my arms, burying her face in my chest. She was so small, so fragile. I held her tight, feeling her tears soak into my shirt. I'm so sorry, Grandpa, she whispered. I didn't mean for anyone to be mean to you. It's not your fault, sweetheart, I said, stroking her hair. It's not your fault. I held her for a long time. I didn't want to let go. I never wanted to let go again. Eventually, Arthur came over. He was solemn. The police are on their way, he said. For her. I nodded. Good. I want her gone. As I watched the car pull away, I felt a sense of profound emptiness. I had won the battle, but the war had cost me so much. My son was shattered. My granddaughter was traumatized. My family was broken. It was supposed to be a happy day. Later that evening, after the guests had gone, after the police had left, Daniel and I stood in the empty yard. We didn't say anything for a long time. We just looked at the mess. The chairs were scattered. The decorations were torn. The grass was trampled. It looked like a battlefield. Finally, Daniel spoke. I'm sorry, Dad. He didn't need to say anything else. I knew he was sorry. I knew he felt like a fool. I knew he had let me down. We're going to get through this, I said. We stayed there for a while longer, and slowly the sun began to set. I had lost my son for a while, but I got him back. I lost a daughter-in-law, but I never really had her. And I had my granddaughter. She was the one shining light in the darkness. It took a long time to heal. The betrayal wasn't just Rachel's. It was the distance. It was the lies. It was my own blindness. But the story didn't end there. It was a war we won by being patient. Rachel is long gone. She tried to come back, of course. She had her lawyers call, trying to get a settlement, but she didn't have a leg to stand on. The truth is, I was never going to let her win. I had spent a lifetime building a wall of security around my family, a wall she never even knew existed, and she didn't just hit me physically that day. She hit the wall. She broke her own hands. In the end, I didn't just teach her a lesson. I taught my son one too. I taught him that he was a man who was worth more than the lies he was being fed. We rebuilt our relationship brick by brick. It took therapy, hard conversations, and a lot of apologies. But we did it. And Lily, my sweet Lily, she's a teenager now. She lives with me in that big house while Daniel sorted his life out and found a new home. She has a big garden, just like the one she drew in her little picture. She still wears the locket, the one with her grandmother's picture inside, and she knows the story. The truth is, every year on her birthday, I tell her the story. She asked me once, a few years ago, Grandpa, why did you let everyone see the video? It was embarrassing for Mommy, and I looked her in the eyes and said, because Lily, sometimes the truth is the only weapon you have that can never be taken away. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never let anyone push you down. You stand up. You fight back. And if you can't fight, you call the best damn lawyer in town. She laughed. She didn't fully understand it then, but she will. One day, she will. So, what's the lesson here? It's about how even the most unassuming person, a simple grandfather, can possess a power that no one sees coming. It's about the power of legal protection, of quiet planning, of knowing who you really are. For me, it was about reclaiming my family. It was about opening a closed door and telling the world, I'm not gone yet. It was about understanding that revenge isn't about anger, but about resolution. It's about showing that when you push a man too far, you might just find out that he's not the one who is going to fall.